We're back once again, ladies and gentlemen, only on its last call. Last call with the alcohol, only on the Last Call YouTube channel. We're doing a YouTube special once again. I bring in the heavy hitter, the man with the 26-inch pythons, and he is not afraid to drop elbows, power slams, verbal Twitter bombs. If you give him a pro, his pronoun will be kiss my rear end. Not in those words, whole different. I give you once again the man, the myth, the legend. I could be Kevin Apollo of ACW Wrestling. So, Kevin, you and I have watched now the documentary of Mr. McMahon. We had Phil. Phil and I had our debates, remarks, thoughts. You're a pro wrestler, so you know this industry better than I do. I am a spectator slash, outsider, maybe visitor. You're the insider here. So, what did you think as a wrestler? How do you look at the Vince McMahon documentary? And go, is it good? Is it get bad? Is it for us, or is it for like non-wrestling fans?
I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when this trial starts, because I have a feeling that there were two different directions that they wanted to go in when they started doing this, right? Obviously, we were going to talk about the history of the WWE, and they do a spectacular job of that, especially for someone who doesn't know, right? Yes, this documentary is 100% made for people who don't watch wrestling, for normies, the casuals who kind of pop in and out. If you are a wrestling fan, if you've done your due diligence, if you've read all the books and all that other crap, you know a lot of what they're talking about, or pieces of what they're talking about, and they kind of gave you another side of it. The but what I caution everybody is, hey, the WWE is a spectacular, special kind of machine that only people who have been inside of it can really truly speak to what it's like. I've been lucky enough to have had friends who have been there, who have shared their experiences. But I won't ever pretend to be able to, say anything, firsthand, you know, um, unless I got a text while it was in the middle of happening, and that stuff I would never release that into the wild because I won't portray confidences. But in terms of the content of the documentary, I think, before this stuff with Janelle Grant broke down, they were probably going to go in one way, and then I think they wanted to go in another, and I think in the midnight hour they changed their minds and really made this documentary more of a, this is what the WWE was like with this guy, and he has nothing to do with us now. So when you put on Raw in January, you're all caught up with what the brand is, but it's under new management now. So you can feel clean. You can feel clean when sitting down to watch it. And then, I personally think that listen, it's not a popular opinion to have. But when I look at this is a civil matter, not a criminal matter. If he had given her the final amount of money that he promised, we would have never heard anything about this. I personally do not consider her a victim. She was very well compensated. She hung in there for a really long time, and she's just mad that she didn't get her payout. She didn't get her payday. And the intent is to, publicly shame him and create a narrative so that it's really hard for him not to. I think it's very telling, outside of the fact that, he enjoys conflict and drama, that he wants this to go to Discovery because, generally, all bets are off. They're going to comb through every email, every text, every letter, every receipt, and he must be feeling pretty good about where he stands, in terms of what she has accused him of. I think it's, he hasn't really denied much, outside of forcing her to do anything against her will. So I think it's really telling, and I think that we'll get another. They took so much footage that I'm sure that once this trial gets underway or is completed, there will immediately be another Vince documentary that follows this one up, and it'll be painted according to whatever the outcome is.
So how much should we take? Because we've heard the talking heads, and some of them they have no problem saying anything because Tony Atlas says no, this doesn't tie with anybody. Others have been a little more forthcoming, like Hulk Hogan, which we're like, oh wow, we didn't really know this year.
Mhm. You
But
know,
how tough is it, as a wrestler, somebody who knows how this game is played? How tough is it for you watching this, not going? They're still worried about blowback from what happened with Dark Side of the Ring, what's happened with previous, documentaries, and WWE still they collect receipts.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, listen, the someone's always paying attention, right? It's just a matter of whether or not they choose to hold it against you. So like everybody understands when you watch Dark Side of the Ring, you're watching you're watching something that's been sensationalized and is coming from a very specific point of view. We look at how they eviscerated Tommy Dreamer on the plane ride to hell deal. They painted Tommy out to be a villain, and all he did was make an observation about someone's conduct, and they tried to make like he was all but condoning an essay. So it's I think it's a little different. Like, when you dark if you listen, well, look at what happened. Dark Side of the Ring, they could barely get anybody to talk in the show in the later seasons, because no one else wanted to be put into that position. With something like this, they had a pretty extensive list of people they wanted to talk to, and people were pretty open. Like, well, so like I know everybody. There's a lot of debate on like the Trish Stratus part, right? I kind of go at this stage in the game. She doesn't really have much to lie about, but she's also still really happy, really loyal to them. And at this point, if she wanted to turn and say, "Hey, this is how I felt about the segment," there isn't going to be too much blowback on her because, listen, one, he is gone. He is gone. Two, she has a very special place in their history, in terms of what she was able to accomplish, and the fact that, for a long time, she was the diva turned wrestler, pillar slash standard bearer. So like someone like Trish can absorb any potential blowback because they're not really going to f with her too much. She's a little too important. But if it was someone like well, I don't know, what's a like if
If it's a Mickey James, if it's Victoria, somebody who's probably not at that high level, yeah, I get it. But even Trish, yeah, how much is like, okay, I have a good thing going. I don't want to rock the boat because hey, they're gonna call me back. I'm gonna get another big paycheck. And if I do rock the boat, well, they might just not bring. I might not be brought back. They won't do anything nasty, but I like those paychecks.
yeah, the you know again, I feel like if she felt a certain kind of way about it, she would have been open. The one thing I will say is her story about that segment over the last, God, it's hard to believe it's been so long, but over the last 20 plus years, her recollection of events has been relatively consistent. She made it really clear that she was always okay with the segment, the that she knew what she was in for, and that she was okay with it because at the end of the day, the bad guy was going to get his comeuppance. What this has kind of been turned into, I think, with what Meltzer insinuated, um, again, that's coming from a really specific take that I don't think the average fan watching is going with. When you go back to that incident, you're sitting down and you're watching Raw all those years ago, right? Like, WCW's gone. Nobody knows what's going on. The like everything's kind of turned upside down. Vince is doing this ridiculous story where Linda's in a hospital, and then and now Stephanie has now bullied her way into getting Daddy to break up with his girlfriend. Um, Vince, like at that point in time, like what we had come out of the 90s, why was Austin so hot? Because the at the end of the 90s, You're looking at all these plants closing. You're seeing new tech millionaires popping up every 5 minutes. There was a mentality that it was blue collar versus the corporate class, and that generally the corporate class was full of really mean, despicable bullies. Vince was doing what Mr. McMahon did as a character, being a cruel, despicable corporate bully. Um, at that point there had been enough, there had been enough either salacious novels or TV shows or movies about about the corporate team going to Vegas and doing something they should have been doing, and a young girl wound up dead. Like everybody understood the scenario, so I again, where it pissed me off with Meltzer running his mouth is he's trying to say that people who watch the segment watch it with a certain set of eyes that frankly didn't exist for the vast majority. We just watched a guy be a piece of shit and degrade someone in the most humiliating way possible. It wasn't about catering to, some creepy edgelord incel who likes to see women be degraded. Um, can we speak to what was going on? And Vince said no, clearly. There was probably a little piece of him that enjoyed it. But at the end of the day, how did the story end? The Shane kicked the crap out of him. Linda showed everybody that she was faking, and Trish slapped him. He ate all of the shit at the end of the day. Which is what you're supposed to do as the heel. You're despicable until it's time for your comeuppance. And why are we still talking about this segment today? Because they created riveting, memorable TV. That's just the meat and potatoes of it. There have been, other things I would say that happened on WWE TV where, especially involving the girls, where there's probably more room for people to be, openly uncomfortable, and feeling a certain kind of way than, Vince just doing what POSs do. It's again, it's I don't know. I'm of two minds of it. The I go, I don't see. They can't really hurt her if they wanted to, but also she has no reason to not tell the truth. But also she's not going to flame them because she has a great relationship with them. You know what I mean? So it's like listen, if you had who's someone, if they sat Ivory down, right? Ivory, who's been very vocal about things on shoot interviews, and even then she might be a little calmer. Or like Sable, and even then Sable might be a little more calm too. But like if you brought someone in who really had an axe to grind and really had a lot to say, um, maybe that interview segment goes a little different. But everybody that was on there was more or less friendly to Vince. And with all the time that Tony Atlas spoke, I found it incredible that we didn't talk about probably one of the most important Tony Atlas moments. That being that Vince wanted Tony to be the one to beat Sheik, not necessarily Hogan, but Tony wasn't reliable enough. The I think what the story goes that as they were watching backstage, the Vince turned to Tony and went, "That should have been you, but you're not reliable." Because Vince to his credit, um, foresaw the need for and although he didn't exist publicly yet, Vince foresaw the impact of what a Michael Jordan-esque athlete would have had, on the sport or just on sports in general. And he searched for that for a long time. It's just by the time that he gets to The Rock, society was in a place where and I don't know how we've unlearned this lesson, but we were in a place in society where, you know, talking about the color wasn't anything that was big. All we cared about then was whether you're an asshole or not. When Rock says, "Hey, I'm the first black champion," Vince goes, "No, you're the WWE champion." That's kind of where we were. Now for reasons that probably a whole nother topic. We spend entirely too much time on race instead of the content of character, and it's taken us backwards a little bit. But again, this is another discussion for another time.
Here's something I know everybody online is going, oh, Trump, Trump and McMahon are the same. It's like, no, no, Donald Trump, you understand everything about it. He'll tell you his whole story. Vince doesn't tell you anything.
Oh,
And even in this documentary, they were probing, poking Vince, and he's not saying anything. So how tough is it if you're trying to learn about Vince McMahon that he won't tell you anything? I mean, you want to know about him and his father? You want to know about his relationship with his kids? He gives you the bare minimum. Oh, Vince, how did you get abused?
yeah,
How much?
yeah,
And I get Vince is very private about who he is because it's the business, as they say. But how, as somebody who's known of him, or as with somebody who's friends with people who do know him, how tough was this looking at Vince and going, just say something, Vince. Tell us some stories about your life, or
mm.
give us more than just yes, you're a wrestling promoter.
It's I listen. What's fascinating is there's no one around who can tell you anything about Vince's pre-Linda life, right? His brother's passed, the mother's gone. Anybody that he was friends with, in grade school is gone. So there's the only, but this is true to life anyway, though. Like if anybody who's had a grandfather, a great grandfather, or older uncle who who fought in something like fought in something like World War II or Korea, and they don't talk about certain chunks of their life. There's large swaths of their existence that you don't know about. That you're not going to know about, and it's not everybody is blessed to get them to open up about their lives before they pass. So you can have a relative who passes on, and one day you realize you don't actually know anything about this person's life before a certain point. I was a case in point. I love my grandmother. She's one of the most important people in my life. The I did not know what her maiden name was until I was in my 20s. I accidentally came across um a a marriage certificate that was jammed in an old case. The I barely knew that she had siblings because she never talked about her life. Until my aunt brought in her uncle, my grandmother's brother, and introduced me to him for the first time when I was like 17. So it's not that unheard of as a documentary maker. I'm sure it's driving them crazy because one thing is for certain, there is clearly a lot of actual trauma in that man's life. And I don't mean, the watered down woke brat version of it where a young lady has terrible boyfriend choices, and because she had a 2-month relationship with some selfish douche, she now has trauma. No, like there's clearly abuse, clearly physical abuse. They were dirt poor, so there was a lot of struggle there. You know, um, there's abandonment issues, there's resentment, there's everything and anything that you need to build the powder keg that was that man's drive and need to win, need to be the better guy. That's all heroes and villains have their origin story. And it seems like with Vince, we're not ever going to get it, and we're probably lucky we got as much as we got. I mean, listen, look at the difference between this and the original Vince McMahon DVD from I think it was 2005, maybe 2005, 2006. The he talked about the abuse from his stepfather. In this one, he tells everybody that his mother partook. That's a massive admission. The so it's when you I don't know if it's better. Like it's almost like it's almost like the old comic book rule, right? Like the more you tell about this sensational character, the less sensational they become. you know um maybe it's best that we don't know every single thing it is to know about the man, especially his past, but it does make any exploration of his psyche and his behavior that much more fascinating. Like it's what really drives this man. The fact that he has, I think we overlabel things. People would say he suffers from ADHD, but we are just looking at how his brain works. He's talking about, I've got one computer that's doing this while I'm doing this, and then sometimes there's a third computer doing something else altogether. Um, this is a guy whose brain clearly does not shut off. He is thinking about the future. He's thinking about how to grow and evolve. He's thinking about probably some stuff that most people don't think about when they're out in public, and he's also managing probably 2 to 3 conversations at one time. And if you're a little too boring, he's trying to figure out a way to escape this boring ass conversation because you're not adding anything to his life. On top of that, he still needs he's still going to find a way to go and physically train himself, because even at his age, he still needs to be bigger and stronger than everybody. I think Vince McMahon is going to be one of the most fascinating people on the planet. Again, juxtaposed to Donald Trump, right? The thing I always say about Trump is, especially if you were a New Yorker, Trump has been a known entity. Not including what his father did for people, but Donald proper has been a known public entity since the 70s. Since the 70s. In the 80s, I don't think there was any one human being who was probably more exposed, out there. And then, everything we saw with him in the early 90s up to his deciding that he was going to go do The Apprentice. If there's a microphone or a camera, he will jump in front of it, and if you ask him a question, he will answer it. As almost shockingly frank as any human being could ever want to be. So it's interesting that you see those parallels, but when it comes to their lives, they are very different. But at the same, I go, well, I can see how they're friends. They're both super alphas who are like, no, I'm in this to win it. Say what you want about Trump, but the guy beat the mob, and the mob didn't kill him. But he beat him. Vince beat the federal government. Vince beat everybody who came across his doorstep. Um, he most likely paid off a judge or two to get someone out of trouble. He, without a second thought, dropped a ton of money to save to help Pritchard get help Bruce Pritchard's wife when she was sick. There's it's I don't know, no one person, with the exception of a select few, are all good or all bad. The difference is, has the good that they have done overridden the bad, and how bad was the bad that they did. The People are complex, especially when you have money. It's if you have money, you live a different kind of life. So it's different habits, it's different mindsets. So one, it's never shocking. I can't remember what the phrase is, but yeah, a lot of these rich guys, whether they're married or not, they do have pay to play girlfriends. It's- I'm paying you to essentially, hang out with me. You're not an escort. You're not an escort. You may be on the payroll, but you are here to play, and you'll be well compensated for it. So it's never shocking when you find out this random CEO, had this 20 something that he was taking on extravagant vacations and buying all these things for. It's all right. How many times have we seen it? There's really not too much shocking here. Other than apparently Vince has a secret Batcave entrance that has an absurd amount of sex toys, and each sex toy is branded by the name of someone he at some point in time had under a contract.
Well, here's one shocking part. This documentary makes Shane McMahon look like a tragic hero because you hear, there's the story of it now. Paul Heyman tells where
Mhm.
him and Vince and Shane are fighting about some not physically but verbally about a creative decision, and Vince basically tells Shane, either you kill me or you buy me out. Even then, you still got to get rid of me. how much does this documentary sort of help Shane that people realize, you know what, he's sort of, he is that guy who should have taken over the company, should have been, had a lot of great ideas. And if he had a normal father, he would have been much more successful. But Vince just doesn't like showing love and doesn't want to, give up anything for his kids.
Yeah, well, it's I would say, listen, I think that Vince clearly loves his kids, but Vince looks at life very differently, right? Like Vince is the kind of person who he's not going to hand the reins. You have to take them from me, right? He lives life like he's a Highlander. There can be only one, and if you want this, you got to take my head. The and it's probably made for some really um complex, interpersonal interactions, right? But I was go, hey guys, we all know there was a reason that Shane decided that his life should be his life would be more fulfilling if he tried to bring pay-per-view to communist China than it would have been if he continued to work by his father's side. Right? Like, really think about that. It was easier to bring capitalism to communist China than it was to work with his dad. You know, the and listen, Shane is extremely successful in his own right. It helps when your wife is comes from an oil family, right?
Well,
You know,
I mean, like, you hear with news, like, he was the one who said, look, ECW should be, what NXT is. Just
yeah,
Vince,
well,
leave it alone. Give it to Heyman. Let us put it on YouTube. Hey, WC is going to be a big thing here. We need to buy it. Hey, we should do more of a YouTube channel. W Network. And each time Vince goes, oh, that's a silly idea, silly idea. Then we look as in this documentary, realize, yeah, Vince was wrong. He should listen to Shane if he just,
yeah.
got out of his own goddamn way.
But listen, the one thing I say about yes, and I do talk about that all the time. Shane was a Shane was well, both Vince and Shane, more times than not, have been very ahead of the curve. Um, Vince foresaw things that people didn't. I remember that shareholders call. Again, this is back in, I think it was '06. It had to be '06 going into '07 maybe. Where Vince held up his phone. It was before iPhones. It was before the very first iPhone. Vince holds up his phone in a press conference and goes, "This is the future." When people are asking about where the WWE cable channel was, he said, "Nope, this is the future. Mobile entertainment, multimedia. This is the wave of the future. This is where the WWE network's going to go." And people were like, "What is this lunatic even talking about?" And what, 2 years later, the right in '08, the iPhone drops and changes everything, right? Like it's changed everything. How we looked at our entertainment. Netflix adopts the streaming model. The the world is just a very different place. The Vince saw that long before anybody even could have. To the point that no one talks about it. The MLB worked hand in hand with the WWE to develop the technology because they're like, oh wow, yeah, this guy's doing something that's way better than what we were doing. How did they do it? How did they come up with it? We talk about what the XFL did for football. The XFL, people, you can laugh at it and say it was a bomb, but the XFL changed how we watch football, how we consume it. The listen, the moving to a global scale versus the territory scale. It just everything is again, it's you have two future focused minds, and of course there are going to be times where those minds are not going to line up. For Vince, Shane was the young upstart who hadn't earned the ability to be making these demands. And for Shane's like, hey man, if we want to compete, if we want to move the future, this is the way we got to go. You know, two people can be right at the exact same time, and the wrong decisions still get made. The maybe, who knows? Maybe YouTube wasn't the right move for Vince for what he wanted, right? Because he was so damn focused on streaming. The yeah, who knows? Listen, what I will say is, hey, you know, um, there's a reason that Shane hugs his kids, right? There's a reason that you always, every time you see a picture of Shane with his kids, he's hugging them. He wanted to make sure that they got a different kind of different slice of life than probably what he got. And yes, sure, everybody cheered and rooted for Shane when you listen to wrestlers talk about Shane. It's nothing but high praise. Or what did Kevin Nash say? Shane was one of the most down, most real people he's ever worked with. Same time, Shane also booked one of the absolute worst Royal Rumbles in history. The not everybody's perfect. You're no one really bats 1,000. You're just hoping to be 500 at best. The
But at
so
least
it's
with that, you understood. Like I think for him, it was I just want that moment. I've paid my dues. I mean, people don't understand. I don't think realize like you go back to the the infamous. I shouldn't say infamous, but it is sort of an infamous. The match with Kurt Angle and Shane got fucking beat up. I
yeah,
mean, he got the shit beat out of him to the point where even Vince is like, "Stop this, stop this." I'm gonna fire somebody if you go through one more, window, or if Kurt tries to literally put his head through the window. What does Kurt do? Throws him,
yeah, because Shane
three
couldn't do it.
times through glass plate windows. Twice, no, it doesn't break, and even Kurt's going, "All right, well, we're gonna try this again."
Yeah. Well, again, it's the they're the same but different, right? Shane was not going to not let that spot not happen. Shane was not going to not climb up the highest point and jump off of it. They just, whether it was he was trying to win Daddy's love or not, Shane knew what he wanted and Shane chased it. Again, I say even the same goes for Stephanie. Stephanie is an incredible businesswoman in her own right. You know, the I think she's probably more like her dad than Shane is. Um, and listen, at the end of the day, I really truly believe that if Vince wasn't forced out at the start of this, right, because there's nothing anybody could do to him. He had 52% stake in the company, so he was a super majority. Any punishments were laughable, and any exile was self-imposed. But I truly feel that because publicly his kids turned on him, he's sitting at home and he's going, fuck it. If they're gonna force me out, no one gets it. And he dusted himself off, put himself back in charge, took over, and did what he did, and made a whole bunch of billions of dollars, in the process. Ooh, hold on, I some super feedback that I don't know why from somewhere.
So all this is going on, and once again, we're with Kevin Apollo here. We're talking the Vince McMahon documentary. What's going on? What happens here? We're gonna wrap this up because our next topic's coming up. So let's ask the question that nobody's talking about in terms of how much did Netflix want this to air sooner rather than later so that they can go into this, kumbaya, everybody's happy and nobody's feeling like, oh yeah, well, you did us dirty with this documentary.
Well, that's why I think we got the version that we got. They wanted this out. Vince is still a hot topic, but notice this didn't drop during WrestleMania season, right? Like this documentary dropped weeks before Survivor Series, weeks, months before the Rumble, and nowhere near WrestleMania when it would have been most important. But most importantly, before the January start date. Because we understand how the news cycle works, we understand how the information cycle works. The Within 2 weeks, no one's going to be talking about this. And because even for normies, there's stuff in there, but there's nothing super duper earth shattering, right? Even when you talk about the female ref, that they settled with, there's a lot to that story. The beauty salon lady that they settled with. When you look at the structure of why it was settled, you see that essentially the conversation went listen, we don't have time to go to court, so we're going to give you this amount of money. If you don't take this amount of money, we know every single thing there is to say about your past, and we will destroy you and outlast you. So she took the settlement. There was no admission of guilt. It was we don't have time for this bullshit kind of a thing, and they decided to move on. So there's we again there's nothing earth shattering in there if you aren't someone who has followed Vince McMahon or read any. If you ever, Phil Mushnick did a much better job of trying to make Vince into Super Satan than this documentary ever did. The so but again, I do think they wanted this in and out. They wanted this in the public eye and out the public eye as fast as possible, because we do need it to be we all need to be sunshine, rainbows and roses when that first episode of Raw drops.
All right. Well, one of the things you're watching is deals, and then it's talking to Netflix about rating and all that. And we go to our next topic here, the AEW TV deal. First off, I'm upset. All these lists of AEW haters who, were hoping the company would go under, and now they eat crow. I was not on that list. I'm very upset about that, Kevin. It's like I should have been on that list, but it's a whole different story, different day. Yeah.
I was shocked. I was shocked I made the list. I'm like, I'm a nobody.
Yeah, but even then, I thought I was gonna get like an honorable mention, but it's a whole different story. Let's just point this out. How lucky is it that AEW benefited from David Zaslav screwing the pooch on the NBA deal, and Ben Fubu, literally killing in court the whole WBD, Fox, ESPN sports package which they were counting on? Because it seems like if either of those things happen, AEW doesn't get that deal.
I spoke to so I went to school for sports management. So I stayed close with some teachers and some classmates, and a couple of them did wind up going into TV. Did go into TV, sports specific TV. A couple of them, they work for the NBA in the TV side. They work at NFL on the TV side. And I was like, hey, listen, help me understand ratings, like the ratings, because the things are different now. You know, Nielsen can't track things 100% anymore. But there are more people who still watch cable than what we like to pretend don't. Um, and the one thing they kept saying was, when you look at something like and even I had a friend who he worked for Paramount, specifically Spike, and he worked with Spike and oversaw TNA when they were on Spike. And so he also played a big part in helping me kind of chew on it. And pretty much they kept saying, listen, the when AEW hit the million mark its first couple episodes, no one expected it to stay there. It actually had overperformed. Um, and with the way people watch TV, especially post-pandemic, as long as AEW stays above 500K, no one's really going to be upset about it. And they broke it down by, look at what's on TV right now. So we're talking FX, just across the cable channels, anything that's non-news or non-major sports. Their ratings, the way the ratings break down now, AEW actually does hold a most watched non-sports, non-news. It's number one. It is actually number one on cable. So when Tony says we're number one in cable in that respect, although yes, he is very much so painfully ignoring Gutfeld and all, talk shows like Gutfeld, things like that. Technically Gutfeld is on Fox News, so it falls under news related programming. So like he's being a little disingenuous, but also telling the truth about it. So for them, the magic number is you got to be above 500,000. The 500,000 number is important because They're saying that is the least amount that you need to have in order to actually be impactful with advertising dollars. Once you get below that, you don't have enough people to market to, so no one cares at that point. It's just wasted money. You're getting no actual market penetration. The hold on a sec. Take it off. Hold on one sec.
You're just tuning in once again. It's Kevin Apollo here. We're talking all things, of course, AEW TV deal. We're talking Vince McMahon Netflix documentary. And if you've have you been living in the hill once again, it is a 3-year deal with fourth option, anywhere between, we have been told, around 150 mark to 170 mark. And people are still trying to figure out all this year. And once again, we brought in Kevin Apollo to help us figure out what is going on. Kevin, are you still, if you're still there with us here? So you mentioned the part where, why they did it.
Oh, gosh,
Is this a good deal? Is this a good deal, or is it one of those things where it's like, all right, well, it's the best of what they could get?
Yeah, I think so since the original point. So yeah, it's the 500K number is important because once you get below that, you can't make enough market penetration with advertising for anybody to really care. And that's when you're like the kind of show that it isn't worthwhile airing. So hey, listen, it's up to AEW to figure out how to reverse the trend that they've been on. And I'm one of the people who was like, guys, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but every time we get out of the NBA finals, we see a brand new low for AEW. And within about by the time we hit September of that year, that low is now the norm. So it's the I don't know what it is about the NBA finals, post NBA finals of TV watching for AEW, but it's for the last 3.5 years, it's been an indicator on where the show's going to be by the time we get back in the back to school season. The so it was I never thought they were never going to not get the deal just because they still fall in that safe zone, and you got to remember things like network sync are very important for them. They can for free they say, hey, you're going to advertise this and this, and you're and we're not just when they do that they're not just marketing to the live audience, they're marketing to the people who are at home. Now listen, a large house like a SmackDown or a Raw network sync is more important than what you're getting when you have a 3/4 empty arena. The and a lot of that just goes into the poor decision making that was AEW's that just going back to the inception of AEW. They thought they were going to be able to rely on the Silicon Valley rich guy slash celebrity class who would travel the country to watch the show. There was never really any intention of reaching out to a broader audience. It was the sickos and it was the wealthy elite. And they're paying for it. Now, is this a good deal? I say it's a bare ass minimum. They got the bare ass minimum. They essentially got a cost of living increase. When you really break this down, um, the it got adjusted for the price of inflation. So like they, at week and listen, they don't release their numbers. Meltzer's really big. Well, just look at the numbers. The revenue that they've got a tremendous increase in revenue. Just look at the numbers. I'm like, but who any the I could take a junior high school kid and explain this to them, and they're going to understand it very well. The revenue is not an indicator of success. It just means cash came in. But businesses run on profitability. It is what is your revenue versus your expenses. And that includes all of your expenses, payroll, production cost, travel, rentals, incidentals, the we know revenue is way down. It doesn't matter what the doesn't matter what you're getting in terms of what you're getting from this particular deal. AEW should be trying to sweeten the pot by spiking their live attendance. They don't do house shows, right? They don't do house shows. Um, their live attendance is non-existent, which means their merchandising is non-existent. And when you look at AEW merchandising, the only thing that really sells is the AEW brand. Tony doesn't own any of the names, doesn't own any, leases the likenesses, doesn't own any of the catchphrase shirts. The hardest working person on the planet right now is Chris Jericho's trademark lawyer. Because if it comes out of Jericho's mouth, the guy has to run to the patent office and try to file the claim. The so like they got essentially this amount of money over the next batch of years is really just a cost of living increase. Is it better than what they got? Sure. Is it great? By no stretch of the imagination. And it's a far cry from the alleged $1 billion deal that they were all claiming that this deal was supposed to be. And look, the it being on Max, it's neither good or bad for AEW. It is what it is. The AEW audience that the pay-per-view buys, it's roughly 20 to 25% of the TV viewing audience. Believe it or not, that's roughly the same as the ECW audience, but you got to remember, even the lowest watched episode of ECW when it was on TNN still had over 2 million people watching. So there are more people watching ECW pay-per-views than there are watching AEW pay-per-views. Um, it's only on Max because um, you know the listen, I think if you pay attention to what's been happening, especially with these movie studios, the WB has had to rely on sugar daddies for probably the last 40 to 50 years. Ted Turner saved them from extinction. Then it was AOL saved them from extinction. Then whoever came at, and then AOL dumped them. I don't remember who was there, and then AT&T said, "Hey, we've got the money. We wanna increase our reach. We're gonna go into cable. We're gonna take these movie studios." That lasted for about a year before they decided they needed to dump it. Then they negotiated a deal with Discovery to take it. Discovery figured, you know what, our streaming platforms are actually doing exceptionally well. So maybe we can navigate this. And then they get a hold of the WB, and then you find out that again, I was the first indicator should have been how the CW was sold. There was no actual sale of the CW. There was an agreement to absorb the debt. So the CW was really technically sold for $0. The new owners just had to agree to absorb the absurd amount of debt from Paramount and from Warner Brothers. The but their none of their assets, and by that I mean Cartoon Network, CNN, um, the after they did a proper valuation, these assets are all worth $0, which is why you saw that massive almost eight what was it? It was like a $4 to $8 million devaluation happen almost overnight because someone actually went in there and checked the books. The only thing that actually has something that vaguely resembles value is Max at this point. Max is the only thing that generates income, which is why all the energy's gone into it. They fully understand that the AEW audience, the vast majority of these people who are watching these pay-per-views are pirating it. They go into the high seas and they steal the content. So they're not paying for it. And so they're hoping that the small handful that does is going to be more okay with dropping $12.99 a month than they are with dropping 50 or $60 every 2 months. The and that if you happen to pop on the app and go to look for something AEW related, maybe you stop and watch a Dirty Harry movie. Well, I don't think anybody from AEW fans watching a Dirty Harry movie. So maybe you stop and you watch the new Sex and the City show, or something on the Food Network and watch Robert Irvine yell at people. That is really what they're hoping for. They're hoping for to get more eyes and get more buys in for Max. And so it's not a great deal. It's not a great deal for AEW. It's a more of a the WB looking to leverage what it has. I say just at the end of the day, AEW really got the renewal because one, they are the third largest combat sports brand, behind the WWE and then UFC being number two. AEW is currently bigger than PFL. Bellator doesn't exist anymore. They're still bigger than boxing. So it's they're low in the social zeitgeist and in the social queue, but they are still number three. Um, Wrestling content is 52 weeks a year. It's relatively cheap to produce, which is why wrestling has always been a part of TV, right? Like as soon as broadcast TV became a thing, wrestling saw its massive boom in the 50s, dropped off a little bit, but wherever there is TV, there is wrestling. The other thing I like to point out for people is, listen, we as terrible as AEW is, right? We have to cheer for it. It's the most AEW haters don't hate AEW to hate AEW. They hate it because they go, this show should be significantly better. There's a better way to do this content. You're spending a lot of time. You're spending a lot of time trying to reinvent the wheel or break the wheel, and you can't. The wheel is the wheel. So find new ways to present the product, not change the product for what it's supposed to be. The we want AEW to learn from mistakes. It's more frustration with with how this show has not grown. With the bizarre production mistakes that they make, with the insane lack of storytelling, and many other things that just tie this product down. And there is no reason for it other than the person in charge is an inept money mark. And unfortunately, he is the one in charge, and the tremendous minds that are there. This show should not be like this. So that's but again, it's about cheap, easy production and network sync is the only reason that show ever had a chance. Now it's a 4-year deal, right? Is it a 3-year deal or is it a
It's a
4-year?
3-year deal with a fourth option.
Right. So people got to remember too, hey, they got a deal, but a deal isn't a promise. A deal is, hey, fine, we'll give you another couple of years to get it figured out. That doesn't mean there's going to be a fourth year. That doesn't even mean there's going to be a third year. If the downward trajectory continues, they may decide to go, listen, we don't need, again, the match number is 500,000. They may decide to go, it isn't actually worth it for us to wait to see how low they can go. They're gonna get there, and we don't want to be there when they're there. I tell everybody the NBA, these guys, they seem to think that the NBA being gone helped them. The NBA being gone hurt them because that was way less money. That was way less money that TNT had to just kind of mess around with, right? Because the NBA, as much as the NBA is, and listen, frankly, Amazon is doing everything in its power to spike the spike the value for broadcasting rights for the NBA, for the NFL, and even I think they're going after the NHL now. The and the MLB, they're doing everything in their power to spike it because Amazon doesn't have a lot of the expenditures that the networks do. So they can bully, they can throw around a lot of money and not take a lot of heat. And at the end of the day, when Amazon does have a big misstep, like with the Rings of Power, what do? They just up the price of your annual Prime membership and keep it moving. The so that it's but when they lost the NBA, they experienced an immediate shortfall in cash that was never accounted for. That was never accounted for because no one really ever thought the NBA deal was in danger. They had a 20-year standing relationship. So by all rights, it should have been a relatively easy negotiation. And then Amazon showed up with more money than ever should have been thrown on the table. And we could see at the attempt at the lawsuit that WB felt that everything happened kind of in bad faith. that they were never allowed the ability to counter offer. And it was really just by virtue of the judge going, I don't really see enough here for that. But it gave you insight in how WB was really feeling about how the deal went down. They felt like they got screwed in the process. So they're going to fight for the UFC. ESPN is broke, right? If it wasn't a Disney property, ESPN would not. It would have been those doors would have been shut down a really long time ago. You know the ESPN decided to go in a certain direction, and the fandom abandoned it in droves for other outlets. But the only thing keeping ESPN afloat is Disney's desire to set money on fire. They're going to get into a big fight over keeping the UFC. Yeah, and I don't think Amazon can approach the UFC because of right because of the Bellator agreement, the end results of the Bellator agreement. I think right. I think the Bellator TV rights automatically got folded into PFL, so there was a no compete there. So I don't think Amazon can go after UFC just yet. So right now we're gonna see a big nasty fight with TNT and ESPN over the UFC. And by all rights, I would think that really it's kind of likely that TNT should be able to pull this off because Disney does not have the money, and ESPN has no money. Um, and TNT can't afford to have nothing just because of how they've branded the network over the last 20 years when they decided to move away from drama and go more towards live sports related content. So it's the next couple months are going to be really interesting. If they do land the UFC, it's going to be good for AEW. Because even though there's the what is it the TKO, even though the TKO
Yes.
was there, UFC does have the ability to exist on its own, so they don't have to worry about Dana isn't gonna Dana will have the ability to play nice when he wants to play nice if he chooses to play nice with AEW without having to worry about blowback from TKO. Because as long as they're network partners, you will see that crossover. AEW will be used to promote, TNT based UFC events. You will see you'll probably start seeing AEW guys in the crowd at UFC shows. Listen, just this month, if you're a DC Comics guy, a bunch of the DC Comics, because WB decided to leverage DC to promote AEW. There's all these mini stories featuring AEW talent in the back of your DC books this month. So, that is the importance of why I was going back to sync. That's the importance of the brand sync. It's you do have the ability to do that and do it for free and hit different aspects of fandom, of the population, and then see what can come out of it. If you At the end of the day, if you only pull 1,000 people, I guess that's 1,000 more people than you had 2 weeks ago. So it's if AEW can pull its head out of its ass, there's no reason that we aren't going to have that we aren't having another conversation about what the new AEW deal is going to look like in 3 years. The only thing that sucks is I don't see it happening in a year from now because they're going to start negotiating the deal. You find you have the option for 4, but you're negotiating so that you can announce the new deal at the end of 3. The They're going to be in the same boat and they're going to be operating from a position of weakness. And I think we spoke about it last time I was on. My gut tells me because it was a TV outlet that leaked this deal that the WB presented this deal to them a really long time ago, and Tony wasn't happy with it and has really spent this last amount of time, these last batch of months, trying to get them to negotiate a stronger deal for them. And WBD threw that information out there to force them to shit it off the pot because we are so late into the season. They missed all the upfronts, they missed all the necessary stuff to do major promotion that AEW needed to get something if they wanted to stay on. And I think Tony really thought that someone else was going to come, but no one showed up. You only have one friend right now. You are the equivalent of the fat girl at the dance. And right now, the nerdy smelly kid is the only one who wants to dance with you. So if you want to go dance, you got to suck it up, pinch your nose, and go do the cha cha shuffle and shut up.
It's funny. I was thinking about this here. When they talked about the documentary, it's Vince is the one who's the predator with the territories and everything. He's going after, he's signing all these people, and Tony's always said, "No, no, we're not that. We're not that." It's now been it's been all after all these years and after this new TV deal. Does it strike you as odd that Tony does exactly the same way? Raids TNA, raids AAA, raids CMLL, MLW, New Japan, steals all the toys and goes, well, I'm just, enjoy pro wrestling. Like, how much is he almost like a sort of, I hate to say it, a femboy Vince McMahon?
Well, but you hit it. He's femboy Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon. It's the I don't want to take us on a path we shouldn't go, but there is a difference between how can I put it? How can I put it? Um, it is essentially Trump versus Gavin Newsom, if really how you want to put it down. The Trump is a very aggressive, very forthright, to the point of it being jarring. Newsom is extremely passive aggressive, almost duplicitous. The and we'll seek moments of opportunity, right? The Vince Vince knew what he was going to do, told everybody what he was going to do, and you either had the ability to jump on the train or get run over by the train. Whereas Tony tries to do the same thing, but he's gonna, instead of knocking on your front door, he's gonna sneak in the kitchen window and raid the pantry and then try to sneak out the back door before he knows what's going on. Right? How did MJF wind up on AEW TV when he and signed a MLB contract? Stole him in that contract. Same thing with Thunder. She got she was loaned. She got loaned to him by NWA. It worked. He thought it was going to work, and so he turned around and he paid out her contract and stole it from NWA. This was going to be what he wanted to happen with what's her name. She just did. God, why am I brain farting her name? Just debuted on NXT. Fort Mercedes at that.
Stephanie Von Care, yeah.
Yeah. That was the plan. That was the plan for Von Kier, right? It just didn't work. She just chose to go to the company she always wanted to go to. But Tony put her on that pay-per-view with the intentions of stealing her. It just didn't work. Tony is one of these guys. Look at the and I say this, as long as you do it fairly and equitably. Tony is a guy who told everybody under the sun, AEW is a place where if you don't want to be here, we won't hold you hostage. We won't keep you prisoners. We won't, we won't tackle an injury time. It's not your fault you got injured, right? The Miro has been trying to get out of there forever. I think allegedly the rumors that he just finally got granted release. But look at Phoenix and Pentagon. We tapped on all this injury time to Phoenix. Why? You didn't do it for other guys. And I think it's so that's why I go. It's very passive aggressive. Right? Punk came and went. Punk came and went without an issue, right? There was no injury time packed on the Punk. Apparently, it wasn't in his contract, but there was no injury time packed on the Punk. There was no injury time packed.
Tony feared for his life. Kevin
feared
for his life.
So why is it okay to hit guys with the injury time and not others? Well, I'll give Vince this: if you had injury time, and here's the purpose. This is why the injury time exists. I'm gonna put you on contract, and you're getting paid this. You're getting paid X amount of dollars because I believe you bring X amount of value to the company. So this is why I have you on my TV. When you are not on my TV, you're not generating that value for me. So I need you, because I still paid you, to show up here and give me my money's worth. And then, hey, once it's done, it's done. The But what's going to happen here? It's most likely that Phoenix is going to sit at home for the next however long the extension is, and not be put on TV. And he's going to be another guy who has his equity wasted. Look at Wardlow, look at Hobbs, look at Miro. I would say look at Scorpio, a guy like Scorpio Sky. Look at what the hell was happening with Ethan Page before he got out of there. The Again, Tony does this like just this little bitchy passive aggressive nonsense with people's careers, and it's like, dude, if you're gonna be a scumbag, just be a scumbag and people will appreciate it. But when you take this mealy mouth bitch boy approach, it's actually worse, because at least people want to know what they're dealing with. And I'll give you this, at least with Vince, you knew what you were dealing with.
Does Tony learn anything from this? I mean, because
No.
it's now a 3 year. He has 3 years to do this, and he's not gonna get along with Dana White. Dana's gonna look at Tony and go, "Who the f are you? What cost?" I mean, I'm counting down the minutes to when Dana goes just full on fire mode with Tony, because he's done that with almost everybody except Vince. Unless you're an alpha male, Dana White doesn't respect you. So, will he learn anything, or is this just 3 years of us going, okay, the end is near? How long till Dana convinced them to be, hey, get rid of these guys?
Yeah.
I think they touch animals in a funny way. Just get rid of them.
Well, we got to see where UFC ends up first before we start factoring before the Dana factor gets worked into the equation. But in general, do I think Tony learns anything? Absolutely not. Um, Proof of if Tony had learned something is in Daniel Bryan versus Nigel McGuinness. There's 1,000 ways we could have told this story, right? The Right now the story is that Danielson's going to retire the second he loses the title, right? So, yeah, sure, fine. He's injured and he got choked up, but I'm going to tentatively book this match because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And if Bryan Danielson can fight, it will be against Nigel McGuinness, because Nigel's been injured for all this time, and Bryan's going to retire the second he drops the title. So this is our only chance to do it. This is why this match is important. Let's all hope let's hope that Bryan gets cleared by the doctors, so that we can have this, so that we can live history here in New York City. Instead, we are allegedly supposed to believe that the story got told by Nigel while he was on commentary on a show that no one watches for a brand that's been long dead. No one cares about zombified ROH. It's no different than going to your local indie show at an Elks Lodge or a VFW. The No one's watching it, so who cares? That's not storytelling. That's storytelling in your mind's eye. Look at Ricochet and what the why am I brain this dumb name?
Will Ospreay Jr.
Thank you. Yeah, look at Ricochet and Ospreay. Um, this was a match that should have been built up over a couple of months and done on pay-per-view. Like everybody knows the dumb spot from freaking 8 years ago. Yay, yay, yay. It was cool the first time you saw it. It has diminishing returns every time you see it, because it just reminds you that it's not wrestling, it's more Cirque du Soleil. But it was still very cool to see it the first time. So you have these two guys, they have similar wrestling styles. There's some kind of a relationship there. You should have been building up the anticipation to this. There's no, like, they should have run into each other. It should have led into a situation where they have to back each other up in tag matches. Then eventually it turns into a situation where they both decide they want to go after the same title. And now, instead of them getting to work each other alone, they keep working the heel in triple threat matches. And then something happens where they both get screwed. And now they finally have to face each other one on one, right? The heel goes, "I'm not going to do this. I'm done fighting the two of you. Whoever wins this gets to come talk to me." You could have told this story over the course of 6 to 8 months, and had earned the ability to had mega anticipation. If you want to do it on TV, you could do it on TV, but really should do it on pay-per-view. So what happens? We do it on Dynamite. Now it's the equivalent of Teen Wolf 2 instead of being Lethal Weapon 2, right? Because we're a little slower, it's not as crisp, things are a little sloppy, and no one watched it. The I find Meltzer found an excuse to give it 5 stars, but the same token, um, Meltzer gave Sol Rucka, he complained about it being a choreographed boring spot fest, and she did half the same spots they did. So which one is it, Dave? The because the only difference is a set of external genitals. It was the only difference between the spots, and I would tell you she did them better. So it's there's nothing been learned here. Nothing's been learned here. That's why no one watched the 5 year anniversary. That's why no one showed up to Arthur Ashe Stadium. We're just gonna be repeating this same bullshit in a couple of years, wondering how do these guys squander this opportunity to be reborn again? You're right, right? And do they get picked up if there's nothing else there? Chances are, if they wind up getting saddled with Dana, Dana's gonna go, why do you have this loser brand on here? I need something else. These guys are pulling down my numbers. I can't cross market with this.
Well,
And then
I was
maybe
gonna say, imagine like Darby Allin or Dana Garcia, at a ringside at a UFC cage, and Dana's going, "Holy crap, these guys are smaller than the flyweights. Holy crap, they have no muscle tone.
hmm,
Did somebody's small shoulder land back in the front row? What the hell is going on? They're wrestling. Oh,
he's
I
a
can
wrestler.
see him going nuclear, like he's gone nuclear, like Oscar De La Hoya and Tony going. Oh my
Yeah,
God, you're just an idiot.
yeah. That
I'm
was
being
I
polite when
do
I'm saying
know.
that. He might go, "You are a effing, bleepity bleep
Yeah,
bleep. Get the F out of my face."
yeah, dude. I wouldn't be shocked, man. I wouldn't be shocked. It's highly possible. So yeah, listen. I want AEW to succeed. Here's the painful truth of it. If AEW fails, and fails in its current state. Not because they were doing gangbusters and the money got mismanaged, but it failed because it was a failure in every metric that mattered. No one else gets a chance like this. They only got this chance because of Shad Khan's relationship with soccer, with cricket, and the NFL, right? Because here's a sports family, here's a billionaire family that can absorb a lot of accrued expenses, which is another thing that really helps them is that the network is losing, but it's not losing as badly as it can be because they're eating the bulk of these losses. Um, but with that also comes, well, hey, what if we want to get one of their soccer clubs on here? What if we need to open up the door to getting something like a cricket on here? That's why they were brought to the table. That's why Shad Khan was brought to the table. But if AEW fails, no one else gets the shot. No one else gets a shot. It doesn't matter who it is. Look, Billy Corgan is a known entity for the last, 35, almost 40 years, and he's struggling to get major TV for NWA. And NWA is an over 100-year-old brand. It doesn't do the numbers that of the WWE, but it did do numbers on Turner. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be damn near impossible for anybody else to. Even TNA. TNA, you know, if let's say if TNN, right, when TNN was a thing before it became Spike. If Raw had never gone to TNN, stayed on USA, um, knowing that they were eventually going to start moving towards the Spike branding, or that it was going to be more of like a not the country music thing, but whatever it became when they were going, it's pop, and no one knew what the hell that meant. The There's a good chance that Bischoff could have gotten WCW onto whatever that TNN was going to be, right? Because they wanted the content, but that's not how it worked out. The TNA got on Spike because they had to make a devil's bargain. TNA had great ratings on Spike. The only thing that had higher ratings on Spike than TNA was Cops for whatever reason. But they leveraged TNA to market all their brand new shows. That included the Ultimate Fighter. The But the devil's bargain was that TNA actually got all of the advertising dollars. So TNA made no money off of the advertising dollars. So they had great network coverage, they had great ratings, but they weren't making money. They weren't making money. All that money went to Spike. So how sustainable is that for most promotions, right? Because at the end of the day, Dixie had to dump TNA because it wasn't making money. You know, they house shows. House shows. Why is WWE chopping the house show schedule down? Because house shows, depending on who you have on it, and we should have learned this from your GM mode, in your 2K games. All these shows have budgets, so why is Roman on such a limited schedule? Because if you put Roman on a house show, that isn't an MSG, chances are your show is going to go from either breaking even to maybe turning a tiny bit of profit to being in the red. So that's why you're seeing house shows drop, because the old marketing model of your TV advertise your house shows for the WWE to your house shows or what you use to get ready for your pay-per-view, and they keep so you use your house shows to keep people excited about your TV, use your TV to advertise your pay-per-view. That model is long gone for the WWE. Um, would it behoove an AEW to try to adopt a model like this with the mindset of we need to do house shows to try to get people excited for TV? Absolutely. But they can't afford to do it right now. So it's we need to be a little more mindful that we need to have AEW succeed for better or for worse, at least until another competitor shows up. If another competitor shows up, whether it be New Japan scores an actual major USA outlet. I know they have TV somewhere on some station that no one has, or if it's AAA, or if it's NWA finally breaks through and decides not to blow the deal by doing a cocaine spot for whatever reason. It's until there's a third option. We need the second option to pull its head out of its ass and do well enough that it doesn't shut the doors forever, because the doors will be shut forever. No one else will ever get another chance at this.
So before we let you go, and then I'm glad you mentioned all these guys. Just TNA has always been rumored to go, hey, we're going to get a TV deal doing. So we're going to get a TV deal soon. And I get it. The Dixie era, the Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan era, literally just torched it, burnt it with napalm, shoved it into the graveyard, and took a dump on it. They now have a business running it. That's why people get upset they're not paying big salaries. They have profits and margins here. They're in better terms with WWE, where we're now hearing TNA getting mentioned. Could this lead to something down the road? I mean, when we hear of like Fox sniffing around Tubi, Roku, is it possible? I just stress the word possible that 2025, 2026 TNA could be that next group that gets a better TV deal or streaming deal, simply because hey, they're actually run by a business and not a fanboy or a rich boy or some other idiot.
Well, it all depends on where Anthem is, right? We know Anthem didn't want to sell to Scott D'Amore, so they got rid of Scott D'Amore. But we don't know. But Scott thought there was an opportunity to try to buy it, which probably tells you that Anthem is probably open to, I don't want to say dumping, but losing the TNA brand. Is this budding relationship with the WWE? Does that mean that this is them trying to transition them over? Because yes, NXT does need a travel infrastructure. The rumor was before the pandemic that WWE was that WWE was leveraging Samoa Joe to negotiate, for ROH, and that ROH would have provided the travel infrastructure for NXT, because NXT was supposed to be on the road as of February 2020. The Obviously we know what happened. So could this the buddying relationship be because hey, they're hoping that WWE turns around and says, hey, we'll take this off your hands, or is this just a good partnership and because of the exposure, yeah, and we see it paying dividends, right? TNA is filling buildings. The crowds are hot. Even when you look at the social media numbers, they, their talent, the interaction on their talents accounts are higher. I don't think there's anybody hotter than Joe Hendry or Jordan Grace right now. The so hopefully, yeah, sure, fine. This could lead to something. Tubi is what's like Fox. Wait, Fox did not want the WWE. Fox just wanted something on the network Fox that generated more revenue than WWE could for them, which is why they went back to college, which is why they went to college football. But WWE wanted to put Fox on FS1. WWE said no because USA offered more money, and technically FS1 is a cable tier lower than USA and TNT, which means it's seen by fewer homes. But that does not mean there isn't room for someone there, right? Like Fox Sports was the original home, for TNA, during the Asylum era. Or hey, Tubi, right? Fox is making all the money on the planet on Tubi on Tubi's streaming service because it shows 5 commercials. But everybody loves their Tubi and it's free. So it's only going to be a matter of time before someone decides to try to leverage what Tubi has to offer. Especially if it's going to be an on-demand thing where hey, like when you go you go to the little boxes below and there's Doctor Who and what's NCIS and all that other stuff down there. Hey, I'd pop if I could scroll down and click the TNA box and now I get to watch all these Asylum era episodes and I know that on a Thursday night, on Thursday night, 8 o'clock is a brand new episode of Impact. That will work out great for them. Listen, I watch TNA all the time on Pluto. I do forget to catch the new episode, but I have the TNA app. But I love watching old school TNA on Pluto. It's a great option. The I hope there's big things in store for TNA. It's nice that they're having this resurgence. Yes, things were not the same after the Hogan era. Um, but there was still some positive in there. I think we're a little listen, TNA never got the love it deserved. I'll just say that. I think some of it was just that, was the era and time that we're in. It was a really dumb decision to name a wrestling show TNA because who could really take it seriously? It's one of those things where it's like, when you're a wrestling fan trying to get a non-wrestling fan into it or a girlfriend into it, hey, we're gonna watch TNA. What do you immediately think of? Now thanks to the softening of generations and needing to be needing to check misogyny, we don't refer to certain things in certain ways anymore. So I I would be hard pressed to even find probably a 20-year-old who knows what the original TNA acronym was for. So you're probably safe now calling it total nonstop action because no one's gonna think of it the other way. Um, but I really hope that it's a good show. I tell everybody I have felt for at least the last 2 years that is a significantly better product than AEW, and that if it was still owned by Dixie and on a major network, it would be the number 2 show. AEW would be the number 3 show. And just again, for whatever reason, it just never really got the love that AEW did. It got a lot of hate. But it's nice to see that it's finally turning around and that people are giving it its due. It's always provided a very innovative. It's provided very innovative content. It has given a lot of young guys, especially smaller guys with a different kind of style, a place to shine. And look at what all these guys. AJ Styles, man, is the king of SmackDown. Although Bob, you see, Bobby Roode had a tremendous but short run, but he's there. He's there as an agent. Abyss is there. You when you look at all the things that a lot of the TNA guys went on to do, guys and girls went on to do, they blazed a very memorable, very memorable trail that should be a little more celebrated than what it is. But yeah, at least now it's nice to see it starting to get its due.
Very you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we're always an honored and pleasure to have on the show. I give you it is once again from it's the man who with 26-inch pythons who's not afraid to put people in their place, drop some knowledge, and even drop some barbells. I give you the war dog himself, Kevin Apollo. So, Kevin, once again, where can fans check you out at? The YouTube page. I know you're doing the Tooneytown Bad Blood watch along tonight. Where's the Instagram, the Twitter, and what's going on with ACW Coliseum? When is the next show going to be?
Oh, sure. So the next ACW shows, we're going to be relatively close to each other. I'm doing a Halloween theme show called Fight or Fright 2 at the Haverstraw Community Center here in Rockland. And then right after that, we'll be at the Palisades Mall on November 2nd for our November Rain event. And then after that, I have a Christmas themed one. I just don't have the date for it yet. I'll post it up soon. But the event links are up on the Instagram, ACW_Coliseum, spelled like Pokemon Coliseum, not like the Roman Coliseum. Same for the Twitter. You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram. Same thing, War Dog Apollo. If you had any questions, feel free to hit me up there. Tonight I'll be with Marv on Tooneytown. We'll be live streaming Bad Blood. Then I'll be back there what is it, Tooneytown Wrestling on Tuesday, and then Toonie Talk TV on Thursday, and then got a couple of things popping up. We're gonna start doing some other content exclusive things on the Patreon, things like that. So it's a fun time. I like being in the space. I have fun with it. I also tell everybody too, if you just go read the first pinned tweet on my Twitter, you can kind of understand what the experience is going to be like. I do present a little Gran Torino, but I'm a lot nicer than that. I just take the Bill Bixby Hulk approach. Just don't make me angry, and we'll be cool. We'll be cool. Other than that, I love a good old fashioned debate. Yeah, just don't be a douche, and we'll be good, man. We'll be cool. Just be the Fonz. Just be the Fonz. What's the Fonz? Fonz is cool.
Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's the War Dog, Kevin Apollo. You can check him out. It's all over the place. And once again, shameless plug. It's acwcoliseum.com. You'll find all the latest upgoings on his wrestling promotion as he's a booker, wrestler, promoter, jack of all trades. Once again, you can check him out. When we come back, there's a lot more going on here. Once again, it is Last Call with the Alcohol, only on it is the Last Call YouTube channel.